Welcome to Kanerika's podcast, The Digital Shift. Today we are taking a deep dive into what might be the biggest architectural change we've seen in enterprise data for years. We're talking about the great consolidation of Azure Data Services into Microsoft Fabric.
It's a huge topic. And it's really not just an optional upgrade. I think that's the key thing to understand. This is a fundamental strategic shift.
Right. Especially for organizations that are, currently wrestling with this highly fragmented ecosystem. They're running Azure Synapse, Data Factory, analysis services, maybe a dozen different tools.
And that complexity, it's becoming a real operational liability. It's slow, it's expensive.
And that fragmented reality is exactly what we want to analyze today. Our mission here is really to extract the core implications for you, the data leader listening in. We want to give a clear view of the why, the business case, and the how.
The often overlooked how, the actual pain points of making the move. And while you can't really talk about this without hitting the efficiency numbers right away, they're pretty staggering.
Let's start right there then. If you're wondering why your data teams seem perpetually bogged down, there's a harsh answer. Recent research shows IT teams spending an average of 19 weeks a year. It's nearly 5 months just managing data infrastructure.
Just managing it, not innovating, not creating value, just keeping the lights on across all these complex hybrid and multi-cloud setups.
And when you look at a unified platform like Fabric, you start to see how eliminating that friction translates directly into, shareholder value.
Oh.
One study pointed to a potential 379% ROI over 3 years.
A 379% ROI. That's not just better software. That number comes from a radical improvement in human efficiency.
Exactly. We are specifically looking at a projected 25% increase in data engineering productivity. And that's the strategic metric. That's what decides if this is a necessity or, just a suggestion.
Okay, so let's unpack that productivity boost. Where does it come from? It starts with tackling that core problem of complexity. Right now, data teams are forced to be integration experts.
Right. They spend their days building bridges between tools, one for ingestion, one for transformation, another for serving the data.
It's the classic many tools, many silos issue. And when you realize that almost 80% of major organizations store over half their data across multi-cloud or hybrid infrastructures,
that headache just compounds exponentially.
And Fabric's unified promise really changes that architecture. It combines everything, essential data integration, warehousing, engineering, BI into one single integrated SaaS experience.
But what does unified SaaS actually mean in practical terms? It's got to be more than just a single portal, right?
Oh, absolutely. The deepest implication, the real game changer, lies in the architectural simplification around the data itself, OneLake.
OneLake.
Instead of moving and duplicating data across all these separate services, Synapse SQL, a data lake, Power BI Fabric centralizes it all into OneLake. It acts as a single, accessible, and governed data source for everything.
So, if I'm getting this right, OneLake isn't just storage. It's more like an organizational model. It kind of enables a data mesh approach, letting different parts of the business own their data without physically copying petabytes of it around.
Precisely. And that simplification, it extends to the operational management side, too. Fabric totally changes how connections are handled. We move away from managing these abstract linked services and data sets,
which were always distinct objects tied to specific tools. I can imagine managing hundreds of those across an enterprise is a monumental task.
It is. And in Fabric, the connection parameters are just defined directly inside the activities themselves. Eliminating that whole layer of abstraction means far fewer objects to manage, to secure, and frankly, to misconfigure.
Which translates directly to lower operational overhead.
Directly. And on top of that, because Fabric is a cloud-native SaaS architecture, it manages the compute resources dynamically. The capacity just scales automatically.
So you're less sensitive to those sudden load spikes or high concurrency? You get more consistent, predictable performance during peak hours. And we can't overlook the fact that this entire architecture is being built with AI integration from the ground up.
That's the strategic long game. That's the real prize. Tools like Copilot for Power BI and Copilot for Notebooks are instantly available to teams working in Fabric. This moves teams away from tedious manual configuration and immediately enhances everything from visualization to predictive modeling.
So the benefits are clear. Massive ROI, huge efficiency gains, and a superior foundation for AI. Let's shift to the friction point. If the move is this compelling, why isn't every large enterprise already there?
Because the transition itself is where the complexity lives. For companies that have spent years building out hundreds, maybe thousands of production pipelines in Azure Data Factory or Synapse,
Moving those workloads is not a simple lift and shift.
not at all. Teams get stuck just analyzing the risk and scope of a manual migration.
Okay, let's dig into the reality of trying this manually. What are the big technical roadblocks that just stall these projects?
Well, there are really four core engineering challenges that turn a manual migration into a 3 to 6 month development slog. The first one is just complex pipeline reconstruction.
Why can't engineers just export the ADF pipeline JSON and import it into Fabric? Isn't it just a schema change?
It's more than that. It's a fundamental change in the execution model, the integration points, especially with OneLake. The JSON definitions for Fabric pipelines they're completely different. So teams are forced to manually rewrite every single pipeline.
The line-by-line engineering effort. That explains the huge cost. What about the infrastructure connecting to the data sources?
That's the second hurdle, integration runtime conversion. A lot of enterprises rely heavily on self-hosted integration runtimes, or HIRs, for on-prem data. In Fabric, these have to be manually converted to on-premises data gateways.
And the complexity there is making sure network connectivity, security protocols, authentication, all of it is perfectly replicated.
Exactly. Without introducing security gaps or performance issues, it's highly prone to error.
So you're not just renaming a component, you're reestablishing network topology and the connections themselves. You said link services are gone.
Right. And that brings us to the third sticking point, the data connectivity shift. In the old world, one linked service could be reused by dozens of activities. In Fabric, that's gone. Teams have to manually redefine connection settings within every single activity.
1,000 activities means 1,000 places where a connection string could be wrong. The potential for error there is immense.
It's huge. And after all that manual rebuilding, you still have to prove that the new Fabric pipeline gives you the exact same output.
The fourth challenge, testing and validation overhead.
Manual migration means exhaustive, months-long validation cycles. You have to run the old and new systems in parallel, which consumes massive engineering resources and just delays the project for weeks, if not months. That risk is often what stops the project dead in its tracks.
It's so clear that the benefits are enormous. But the difficulty of a manual conversion taking 3 to 6 months is the bottleneck, which is why this idea of an automated solution has become really an industry necessity.
Absolutely. The ability to accelerate this migration is the single biggest factor. And this is where automation platforms like the one we at Kanerika have developed dramatically change the game. It turns that marathon into a sprint.
So let's talk about that quantifiable impact. How does accelerating the timeline actually help the bottom line?
By drastically reducing the manual work for those 4 complex steps we just talked about. An automated approach compresses that 3 to 6 month timeline down to just 4 to 8 weeks.
4 to 8 weeks.
And that speed allows us to slash the migration costs by 40 to 60% compared to a manual project, all while maintaining zero downtime for your existing operations.
That speed and cost reduction, it just shifts the entire risk profile of the project. So what does an effective automated framework look like? What are the key stages?
We approach this with 4 critical structured stages. The first is absolutely crucial: pipeline assessment and discovery. Any good automation has to start by deeply analyzing the existing Azure data infrastructure, mapping every dependency, every trigger, all the custom logic.
You build a detailed blueprint before you touch anything.
Exactly. Then, once you have that blueprint, comes step 2, activity conversion and optimization. The automation platform takes that blueprint and converts the old ADF activities into their Fabric equivalents. But the key is, it doesn't just translate the code. It preserves the business logic while optimizing the pipeline for native Fabric capabilities like OneLake integration.
So it's not just a translation, it's an upgrade, an optimization. What about setting up the new environment?
That's step 3, integration mapping and workspace configuration. This is all about governance and security. Your legacy resources are automatically mapped into the new Fabric workspaces. The tool handles updating all the connection strings, service principals, permissions, all of it.
And finally, step 4, addressing the biggest risk, proving that everything works.
Right. Step 4 is validation testing and performance optimization. We run comprehensive testing in parallel. This includes performance benchmarking against your Azure baselines. We do end-to-end execution tests with actual production data to verify accuracy before the final cutover. That parallel model just eliminates the risk of data loss.
So from a strategic perspective for the business leader listening, What are the core benefits of going this automated route?
It really boils down to four clear advantages. First, a much faster migration timeline. Weeks, not months. Second, lower resource requirements. You free up your best engineers from tedious rewriting. Third, zero data loss and business continuity, which is guaranteed through that parallel testing. And finally, minimal manual intervention. Your teams can focus on strategy, not rewriting JSON.
And this transition also addresses the cost optimization of OneLake that we talked about earlier.
It does, seamlessly. The automated tool ensures that during migration, all services are instantly configured to use OneLake natively. It removes all that complex manual storage configuration you'd otherwise have to do later.
It's important to stress that this kind of expertise isn't just about moving from ADF to Fabric, is it? It speaks to a broader readiness for modernization.
Absolutely. The lessons here apply across the data ecosystem. We at Kanerika, we specialize in these seamless transitions. That covers broader services like AI and ML platform integration, data governance, intelligent automation, other migrations too, like Cognos to Power BI or Informatica to Databricks. The goal is to modernize the whole data platform for immediate value.
This has been a really illuminating analysis to synthesize our takeaways for you. The strategic shift from fragmented Azure services to the unified Microsoft Fabric platform is essential. It's about boosting productivity and securing massive ROI. And the critical difference between a quick success and a long, costly failure really lies in the execution method. Automation isn't a luxury anymore, it's a necessity.
And that leads us to our final thought. While Microsoft hasn't announced any plans to deprecate Azure Data Factory, their strategic focus, their investment, it's all clearly shifting to the Fabric capacity model. So the important question for any data leader isn't if your strategy should align with Fabric, but how quickly you can get there. Speed is paramount if you want to leverage future innovations like real-time intelligence and advanced Copilot features, which let your business respond to market changes immediately, not after the next batch cycle.
A crucial forward-looking point. Thank you for tuning in to Kanerika's podcast, The Digital Shift. We look forward to guiding your next transformation.